The Grand Assembly Hall of the Intergalactic Alliance floated like a jewel in the darkness of space. It was built inside a massive hollow sphere, its walls glowing with shifting lights that represented the stars of every member world. Inside, hundreds of alien representatives gathered in a great circular chamber, each species seated in their own section, surrounded by the smells, colors, and strange sounds of their home planets. Today, the air was tense, but full of energy. Rumors of trouble in the outer colonies had brought the most powerful military leaders from across the galaxy. Giant insectoid generals clacked their mandibles in rapid speech. Feathered diplomats from avian worlds fluffed their wings as they argued over strategy. Amphibian admirals kept their scaled heads low, watching and listening. And then, there were the humans. They sat in a small, modest section of the hall, just 5 officers in dark Navy uniforms with the insignia of the United Earth Fleet. No shimmering armor, no ceremonial weapons, no guards carrying banners or displaying trophies. To most here, they looked like a delegation of traders, not warriors. Captain Mara Keegan sat in the center, her posture straight but relaxed. She had a strong face, the kind that looked calm under pressure, but there was steel in her. Eyes beside her was Commander Alex Ruiz, tall and sharpened, scanning the crowd like a hunter in unfamiliar territory. Lieutenant Sarah Dalton, the youngest of the group, kept her hands folded, but her jaw was tight. They had been warned. Humans were not respected here. A reptilian warlord from the Car's dominion leaned forward on his long, clawed arms. His scales were deep green, edged with gold, and his slit-pupiled eyes fixed on the human table with a predatory gleam. "I saw their fleet in orbit," he said in a voice like grinding stones. The translator unit made the words echo in every ear of the chamber. Small, fragile, barely larger than escape pods. His remark drew laughter from several surrounding tables. A massive, bear-like warrior from the Voruan Alliance rumbled. "Perhaps they are here to sell spare parts for their ships." More chuckles followed. The humans didn't answer at first. Mara simply kept her gaze level, her breathing even. The Car's warlord's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, revealing curved fangs. "Tell me, Captain Keegan," he continued, "how do you expect such tiny ships to stand in the line of battle? Or do you hide behind the fleets of greater powers?" Dalton's cheeks flushed, but she said nothing. Alex Ruiz shifted slightly, and Mara gave him the smallest shake of her head. She met the warlord's gaze, without blinking. "Small doesn't mean weak," she said in a calm, steady tone. The laughter rose again, louder now, bouncing off the curved walls of the chamber. Some aliens clattered their limbs in amusement. Others made whistling sounds that were their species' equivalent of mocking applause. The humans' translator devices hummed with overlapping words. Naive, fragile, overconfident, from across the hall. Admiral Vascal of the Udrathi Empire, a towering amphibian with skin like polished silver, raised one long webbed hand. "The Terrans are new to our alliance," he said in a slow, deep voice. "It is natural for hatchlings to believe they are ready for storms they cannot survive." Another wave of murmurs and nods moved through the chamber. Mara didn't react. She had known this would happen. Humanity had joined the Alliance barely 6 years ago, and their technology, compared to most member worlds, was simple. Their ships were smaller, their fleets fewer. To these alien empires, war was a contest of size and firepower. To humans, it was something else entirely. From her seat, Mara studied the others in the hall. She saw arrogance in the set of their shoulders, complacency in their polished armor, and pride in the way they dismissed any who were not like them. It was the same mistake she had seen 100 times in Earth's own history, those who judged only by appearance and numbers, never by the will to fight. She folded her hands on the table and leaned slightly toward her officers. "They can laugh all they want," she murmured so quietly only they could hear. "But they've never seen what a small ship can do when it's flown by someone who refuses to lose." Ruiz's mouth twitched in a small, dangerous smile. Dalton's eyes flickered with determination. The conversation in the hall turned to matters of strategy. Reports of disturbances in the Kroth Nebula were being discussed. Pirate fleets, disappearing colonies, something moving in the dark between the stars. But still, from time to time, a few eyes glanced at the humans with poorly hidden amusement, as if the idea of Earth sending its small, untested ships into a galactic conflict was a comedy in itself. Mara sat silently, watching, listening, letting them underestimate her, because she knew something they did in single quotes, and soon, the whole galaxy was going to find out. The laughter in the Grand Assembly Hall faded when the great doors at the far end swung open. A tall, narrow figure strode inside, Admiral Vascal of the Udrathi Empire, his silver skin gleaming under the soft blue lights. His long webbed fingers clutched a glowing data cylinder. He moved directly to the center platform, where the Alliance emergency announcements were made. Representatives, his deep voice echoed, amplified by the chamber's speakers. I bring urgent news from the Kroth Nebula. The air in the hall shifted. Conversations fell silent. The murmuring, if translators paused. Even the faint hum of ventilation seemed to still. Vascal placed the data cylinder into the central holotable. A moment later, the air above the platform shimmered, and the Kroth Nebula appeared. It was beautiful in the projection, vast, clouds of red and gold gas stretching across the darkness, with stars burning like embers within. But beauty could not hide the shadows moving inside it. At first they were faint, almost invisible. Then the image zoomed in, and the shadows became shapes. Black insect-like craft, thousands of them, moving in perfect formation. Their surfaces glistened as if wet. Their eyes or sensors burned with cold blue light. This, Vascal said, is the Zeroth swarm. Gasps and clicks, and sharp alien intakes of breath echoed through the chamber. Many had heard the name, whispered in old war stories. The Zeroth were part machine, part living matter, a fusion of technology and predator instinct. No one had seen them in centuries. Some believed they were extinct. They emerged from the nebula 3 standard days ago, Vascal continued. They destroyed the colony of Maris 4 in less than 1 hour. Every escape craft was intercepted. The signals from Maris 5 and Maris 6 have already gone dark. Our scouts report their numbers growing with each attack. The swarm feeds on what it kills. His last words sent a wave of unease through the hall. The translator units repeated them in dozens of languages, each carrying the same sense of horror. From the car's Dominion table, the reptilian warlord, who had mocked the humans earlier, leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. How many ships? Vascal turned the projection again. The image changed to a scan of the swarm, a black tide surrounding a lone freighter. The scan counted millions. A heavy silence followed. Admiral Giravel of the Voroan Alliance slammed a massive paw on the table. Then, there is only one choice. We assemble the largest fleet in Alliance history. Every capital ship, every dreadnought, we crush them with size and firepower. Agreement rippled through the chamber. Alien commanders shouted orders to aides, already preparing fleets to move toward the nebula. Mara Keegan sat quietly, studying the holomage. Her eyes weren't on the number of ships, they were on the way the Zeroth moved. Their patterns shifted and twisted, almost like the swarm was alive in a single mind. There was no hesitation, no wasted motion. It was a predator's efficiency. Alex Ruiz leaned closer. We can't fight that head-on, he whispered. Mara didn't look at him. No, we can't. But they're not just attacking, they're hunting. Look at the formation. They're driving survivors toward something. Dalton's brow furrowed. Toward the heart of the nebula. Mara nodded slightly. Maybe. Whatever it is, they're protecting it, which means it's important. From the main platform, Vascal spoke again. The Alliance fleet will assemble in 2 standard days. The Terran vessels. He hesitated just slightly, his silver eyes flicking toward Mara's section. Are not required to participate in the first strike. Their ships are unsuited for direct engagement. It was said politely, but everyone in the room heard. The real meaning, too small, too weak. The car's warlord chuckled. Let the humans watch and learn from a true fleet action. Mara kept her voice low and even. We'll be there. Moscow's gaze sharpened. Captain Keegan, I am not ordering you. Don't need to order us, Mara interrupted, her tone calm but firm. Earth joined this alliance to stand against threats like this, and we don't sit on the sidelines while others bleed. The statement hung in the air. Some in the chamber looked impressed. Others thought she was reckless. When the meeting ended, alien admirals hurried away to prepare their massive fleets. The humans were left standing together in the now empty chamber. Dalton broke the silence first. They think we're going to watch from the sidelines. Ruiz gave a short laugh. Let them think it. The less they expect from us, the more surprised they'll be. Mara walked toward the exit, her boots echoing on the polished floor. They'll send their biggest ships right into the swarm's jaws, and the Zeroth will adapt. They'll break that fleet like it's nothing. When that happens, she glanced over her shoulder at her crew, her voice steady, but carrying the weight of unshakable resolve. 2 standard days later, the docking bays of the Alliance's central station were alive with motion. Warships from 100 worlds crowded the massive orbital platforms, their hulls gleaming with fresh battle paint, their engines burning with power. Giant dreadnoughts from the Vorowin Alliance, shaped like armored beasts, rested beside sleek cars, Dominion cruisers, bristling with plasma lances. Long, silver spear-shaped Udrathi carriers floated like silent predators, ready to unleash their fighter swarms. Everywhere, crews ran final checks. Alien pilots adjusted the straps of their armored suits, their 4 or 6 hands moving in precise rhythm. Engineers shouted over the hiss of coolant lines and the hum of charging reactors. And tucked into a quiet corner of Bay 12 sat 12 small, dark gray ships bearing the insignia of the United Earth Fleet. They were unremarkable beside the giants that surrounded them. Their armor was plain, their weapon ports modest. Their profiles slim, built for speed and agility, not brute force. From the bridge of the lead ship, F's Valiant, Captain Mara Keegan watched the bustle through the viewport. She could hear the faint hum of her own ship's systems, a steady, reliable sound that she trusted more than the rumble of any alien super-dash engine. Behind her, Commander Alex Ruiz studied a holomap of the Kroth Nebula. The main fleet's flight plan is locked in, he said. They'll hit the swarm straight on, all guns firing. Mara's eyes stayed on the viewport, and the swarm will adapt, like it always does. Lieutenant Sarah Dalton leaned against the console, arms crossed. They think we're just going to follow behind and watch. They're counting on us doing nothing, Mara said. Which is why we're going to do something. Ruiz looked up from the holomap. We're breaking orders. Then, Mara turned to face her crew. We're not breaking orders. We're taking initiative. The fleet will keep the swarm's attention. We'll find the heart of the threat, whatever's driving them, and take it out. Dalton's expression was cautious, but eager. If we're right, it'll save lives. If we're wrong, then we die with everyone else, Mara said plainly. Her voice wasn't harsh, just honest. In the corner, Chief Engineer Lena Ortiz wiped her hands on a rag. If you want to sneak past the swarm, I can overclock the engines. But if I push them too far, we might burn them out before we even get close. Do it, Mara said without hesitation. I'll take speed over comfort. That night cycle on the station, the alien commanders held a final strategy session. Mara and her officers were not invited. Instead, they received a polite message from the Alliance Command, advising them to observe from a safe distance. Dalton read it aloud in the ready room. Safe distance, she muttered, tossing the data pad onto the table. That's their way of saying stay out of the way? Ruiz smirked. Fine by me. Let them underestimate us a little longer. Mara looked around at her crew. Once the fleet leaves tomorrow, we'll slip into the nebula ahead of the battle line. No lights, minimal power draw. We go quiet until we find something worth hitting. Ortiz raised a brow. And if Alliance Command asks where we are, they won't notice until it's too late. Mara said. When the launch orders came the next cycle, the massive Alliance fleet moved first. The docking bays opened, and dreadnoughts, carriers, and cruisers poured into the void, engines burning in every spectrum. The formation was a wall of steel and light, a show of force meant to crush any enemy by sheer presence. From their position, at the rear, the human ships looked even smaller, 12 gray arrowheads among a sea of titans. Waskel's voice came over the comms. Terran's squadron, remain behind Vorun command ships. Provide support fire when directed. Mara responded with a simple, understood. As the fleet accelerated toward the Kroth Nebula, Mara gave a silent hand signal to Ruiz. One by one, the human ship's transponders dimmed, their sensor signatures shrinking to almost nothing. They began drifting out of formation, their movements masked by the energy wash of the larger vessels. Dalton monitored the scopes. We're invisible on their long-range scans. For now, Ortiz's voice came from engineering. Engines are primed for a burst when we need it. The Valiant and her sister ships slid away from the main fleet's course, angling toward the nebula's dark outer rim. The gas clouds loomed ahead, glowing faintly in shades of crimson and gold. Lightning arced inside them, silent in the vacuum but visible even from this distance. Ruiz studied the readings. Radiation's higher here than on the main route. Most ships wouldn't risk it. That's why it's perfect for us, Mara replied. As they crossed the nebula's edge, the light from the stars dimmed. The gas clouds thickened around them, wrapping the ships in shifting color. Static whispered through the comms. The hull creaked under the strange gravitational pulls hidden in the clouds. Dalton stared at the swirling patterns outside. Feels like the whole place is watching us. Mara's gaze stayed fixed on the void ahead. Good. That means we're close to something. They moved deeper, navigating narrow gaps between fields of ionized dust and pockets of violent energy. Ruiz's hands never left the helm controls. Every course adjustment had to be precise. A wrong turn could tear the ship apart without a single shot fired. Ortiz's voice crackled through. Engines are running hot, Captain. If we don't slow down, we can't slow down. Mara cut in. The fleet will engage soon. We need to find their center before that happens. And then Dalton's console beeped sharply. I've got a faint signal, she said, her voice suddenly tight. Not Alliance. Not any known ship. It's huge. The crew exchanged a look. Ruiz tapped the controls, locking onto the signal. A faint image began to resolve on the screen, something deep within the nebula. Darker than the space around it, its shape shifting like it was alive. Dalton swallowed. That's not a ship. Mara's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. No, that's our target. The Kroth Nebula swallowed the human ships whole. Once they crossed the boundary of glowing gas, the outside universe disappeared. There were no stars here, only shifting curtains of crimson, gold, and black. Static flickered across every screen. The faint pull of gravity came from strange directions, making the deck plates feel uneven underfoot. Inside the F's, Valiant, Captain. Mara Keegan sat in her chair, eyes fixed on the forward screen. Her crew worked in silence. Even the soft hum of the engines seemed too loud here. Commander Alex Ruiz kept his hands steady on the controls, guiding the ship through narrow lanes between thick dust clouds. Visibility's almost zero, he said quietly. Lieutenant Sarah Dalton scanned her console. Sensors are picking up movement ahead, but it's faint. Could be gas currents, Could be something else. Mara didn't reply. She could feel it, the way the air seemed heavier, as if the nebula itself was aware of their presence. The comm crackled. It was Chief Engineer Lena Ortiz from below decks. Engines are holding, Captain, but the ion interference is burning through our shielding faster than expected. We'll have to ease power soon, or risk a full systems failure. Mara's gaze stayed forward. Not yet. Keep them steady, just a little further. The gas clouds parted ahead, revealing a dark emptiness, a pocket in the nebula, vast and silent. And there, drifting in the middle of it, was the source of Dalton's earlier signal. At first, it looked like an asteroid, but as the Valiant drew closer, its shape shifted in the light. It was enormous, larger than any ship they had ever seen, a jagged, many-limbed structure of black metal and glistening organic matter. Its surface pulsed faintly, like the slow heartbeat of some colossal beast. Ruiz's voice was low. "That's no storm." Dalton's fingers tightened on her console. "It's alive. At least, part of it is." The crew stared in silence. Then, without warning, a ripple passed across the structure's surface. Segments unfolded like the wings of an insect, revealing deep channels that glowed faintly blue. Small shapes detached from the main body, hundreds of them, and began moving toward the Valiant. Dalton's sensors beeped in alarm. "Contacts incoming. Fast." Mara stood. "Drones. Not like any drones I've seen," Dalton replied. "They're growing as they move." The first wave came into visual range. They were smaller than the Valiant, but moved like predators, darting in quick, purposeful bursts. Their bodies were sleek, black, and plated with something that reflected almost no light. As they closed in, their shapes shifted, forming new weapons, sharper edges, thicker armor, adapting even before the first shot was fired. Ruiz's jaw tightened. "If they're adjusting before battle, they've already scanned us." Mara's voice was steady. "Then we don't give them time to adapt further." She turned to Dalton. "Arm forward railguns and point defense turrets." The Valiant's first volley tore into the lead attackers. 2 drones shattered instantly, their remains spinning into the nebula's dust. But the others dodged with unnatural precision, their movements almost predictive. "They're learning our fire patterns," Dalton warned. "Switch to manual targeting," Mara ordered. "Make it unpredictable." Ruiz swerved the ship hard to starboard, the inertial dampeners groaning under the strain. The turrets fired again, not in steady bursts, but in irregular, chaotic rhythms. Several more drones exploded, but the survivors split into 2 groups. Circling from opposite sides, Ortiz's voice came over the comm, strained. "Shields are down to 70%, and something's interfering with the reactor. Feels like they're trying to drain us." Dalton's console flashed red. Multiple breaches in the F's Valiant drifted in the glowing darkness of the Kroth Nebula, surrounded by 100 hostile blips on the radar. The black, insect-like drones swirled around them like sharks circling a wounded animal. Every few seconds, one would dart in to test the human ship's defenses, only to be shredded by gunfire or torn apart by point defense lasers. But for every drone destroyed, 3 more appeared from the shadows. Captain Mara Keegan stood in the center of the bridge, her jaw tight, her eyes locked on the massive, living structure ahead. It moved slowly, like a creature waking from centuries of sleep, its jagged limbs reaching through the gas clouds, as if feeling for prey. Commander. Alex Ruiz broke the silence first. "We can't win a slugging match with this thing, Captain. If the Alliance fleet charges in, they'll just be feeding it more ships to tear apart." Lieutenant Sarah Dalton was already running simulations on her console. "I've been tracking its energy patterns. That glowing section we hit before. It's not just a reactor, it's some kind of neural hub. I think the whole swarm is linked through it." Mara nodded slowly. "So if we destroy the hub," Dalton finished the thought, "the swarm goes blind." Ruiz frowned. Easier said than done. That thing heals faster than we can hurt it. The comm system crackled to life, and Chief Engineer Lena Orcs' voice came up from the engine room. Captain, I've been studying the interference in our systems. It's not just radiation from the nebula. That thing is feeding on us, pulling heat, draining power, leeching off our reactor like it's drinking from a straw. Dalton looked up sharply. If it's drawing power from us, maybe we can reverse it. Ruiz turned toward her. Reverse it? How? She tapped her screen. Diagrams appearing. We overload the connection. Feed it more energy than it can handle. Not a little, but everything. Ortiz swore over the comm. That would mean dumping the whole reactor output straight into the hub. You'd cook the ship from the inside out. We wouldn't survive the feedback. The bridge went quiet. Mara's voice was calm when she spoke. What if we make sure we're not here when the overload happens? Ruiz's brow furrowed. You're talking about remote detonation. Exactly, Mara said. We plant the overload device directly inside the hub, set it to go critical, and get out before it blows. The shockwave should fry their network completely. Dalton's fingers hesitated above her console. That means getting through the swarm, docking with a living alien structure that's actively trying to kill us, and then finding the exact place to plug in the overload. Ruiz let out a short, humorless laugh. Sounds like suicide. It is, Mara said quietly, unless we do it fast and smart. The next few minutes on the bridge were a blur of tense voices and hurried plans. Dalton mapped a path through the swarm's weakest point, a gap that opened for less than 30 seconds every time the drones reformed their attack pattern. Ruiz calculated the tightest approach vector to avoid being cut off. Ortiz worked on reconfiguring a portable reactor core into a makeshift energy bomb, her voice echoing through the comms as she shouted for tools and warned about the unstable charge. Through it all, Mara stood still, watching the massive alien shape on the screen. She could feel its attention, like the slow, cold gaze of something ancient. When Ortiz finally came up to the bridge, she carried a black metal cylinder the size of a small barrel. Its surface hummed with contained power. This is it, she said, setting it down carefully. Once it starts the overload, there's no stopping it. 15 minutes to detonation. Mara nodded. Good work. We'll take it in ourselves. Dalton blinked. Ourselves? Captain, I can handle the delivery. You need to stay here. Mara shook her head. If something goes wrong, I'll make the call. I'm not asking anyone to take a risk I won't take first. Ruiz leaned forward. Then I'm going to. You'll need someone to cover you. Mara gave him a brief, almost reluctant smile. Fine, but you do exactly what I say. The launch bay was dark, lit only by the red glow of emergency lights. Mara and Ruiz stepped into the Falcon, the Valiant's smallest dropship, a wedge of metal, barely large enough for 2 people, and a cargo crate. Dalton's voice came over the comm as the bay doors began to open. V got 30 seconds before the drones closed that gap. Good luck, and come back. The Falcon shot into the nebula's eerie light, weaving through clouds of gold and crimson. Drones darted in their direction, but the Valiant's guns opened up, cutting a path. The alien hub loomed ahead, a wall of black and blue, its surface rippling like muscle under skin. Ruiz gripped the controls tight as the Falcon dove toward a jagged opening in the alien structure. The entryway was lined with sharp, curved ridges, shifting slightly as if breathing. The moment they crossed inside, the sound changed. The hum of the Falcon's engines was drowned out by a deep, resonating pulse. It's alive, Ruiz muttered. Mara unstrapped and lifted the reactor bomb. Let's find the brain. The interior corridors were vast and strangely organic, walls pulsing with faint light. Thin strands of glowing material ran along the surfaces, twitching as the humans passed. In some places, the floor seemed to ripple under their boots. They found it at the end of a long, curved tunnel, a chamber where the strands of light converged into a massive, glowing node. It pulsed faster when they entered, and the walls around it began to shift, forming spines and closing off the exit. "It knows we're here," Ruiz said, raising his rifle. "Then we don't waste time," Mara replied, setting the bomb at the base of the node. The device's hum deepened as she activated it, a countdown flashing red on the side. 15 o'clock, 14:59. The node's glow intensified, and the walls began to close in. "Time to go," Mara said. They ran back on the Valiant. Dalton's voice was tight. "Drones are converging on your position. You need to get out now." Ruiz pushed the Falcon to its limits, weaving through collapsing tunnels as the alien structure reacted violently. Parts of it lashed out, whip-like tendrils smashing against the hull. A glancing blow sent them spinning, alarms screaming. Mara gritted her teeth, hands braced against the console. "Hold her steady." The exit loomed ahead, a sliver of gold light through the black walls. Ruiz slammed the throttle forward. They burst free into the nebula, just as the swarm around them shifted direction, chasing them with fury. The timer on the bomb read 2:13. The Falcon tore through the swirling gold and crimson gas, its small frame shuddering with every evasive twist. Behind them, the alien swarm screamed through the nebula, not with sound, but with the eerie vibration that rattled through the hull and into the bones of everyone aboard. Mara Keegan sat rigid in the co-pilot's seat, eyes fixed on the display, where a red timer counted down. 1:58, 1:57. "Keep her steady, Ruiz," she said, though her own voice was tight. Commander Ruiz's hands gripped the controls so hard his knuckles were pale. "Steady. I've got 30 drones on our tail, and they're faster than we are. If we live long enough to see this thing blow, I'll consider it a personal miracle." The comms crackled, and Lieutenant Dalton's voice cut through. "Captain, I've got firing solutions, but the swarm is too tight. If I hit them, I'll hit you too." "Hold your fire," Mara ordered. "We can't risk slowing down." The Falcon pitched hard to the left, weaving between floating chunks of alien debris, jagged black shards drifting through the nebula like broken teeth. Each one seemed to pulse faintly, as though still alive. A drone clipped one shard and shattered into molten fragments, but the others swerved around with insect-like precision. Ruiz risked a glance at the timer. 1:21. "We're not going to make enough distance, Captain." Mara's mind was already racing. "Then we change the rules." She keyed into the Valiant's comm. "Ortiz, I need every scrap of power you can give me, routed to the Falcon's rear thrusters. I don't care if you have to dim the lights and shut down the coffee machine. Just do it." From the Valiant's engine room, Chief Engineer Ortiz replied, "You're about to have the nastiest ride of your life. Hold on to something." A deep hum rolled through the Falcon, and the acceleration slammed Mara and Ruiz back into their seats. The small craft shot forward like a bullet, the drones falling behind for the first time. 30 seconds until detonation. Dalton's voice was loud in their ears now. The alien hub loomed behind them on the sensors, a dark silhouette against the glowing clouds. The swarm began to panic, breaking formation and racing back toward their master. It was too late. 00:05, 004, 003. Mara stared at the display, her breath caught. The timer hit 0. The detonation wasn't like a human explosion. No blinding fireball, no deafening roar. Instead, the hub's core flared with a sickly white light that pulsed outward like a heartbeat. The first pulse rippled through the swarm. Every drone froze mid-flight, limbs twitching. The second pulse shattered them, their black shells fragmenting into drifting dust. Then came the third pulse. It tore through the nebula like a tidal wave, rattling the Falcon's hull and flooding every human sensor with static. Ruiz swore under his breath. That wasn't just the hub blowing. That was an energy surge. Dalton finished from the Valiant. It's spreading far beyond the nebula. I think it just hit the Alliance fleet. The Falcon made it back to the Valiant's docking bay, scraping against the side on the way in. Mara barely waited for the clamps to engage before unstrapping and stepping onto the deck. Ruiz followed, still breathing hard. Dalton met them with a grim look. "We've got a problem." The surge didn't. The Kroth Nebula trembled with every pulse of the massive creature, a living fortress larger than the combined fleets of the Alliance. Its black spines rippled in the glowing gas, eyes of piercing blue scanning the void, searching for threats. It moved deliberately, each motion sending waves through the nebulous clouds, scattering smaller debris and drones alike. Inside the F's, Valiant Captain Mara Keegan's hands gripped the console. Her jaw was tight, her chest heavy with adrenaline. She could feel every tremor in the hull as the colossal entity adjusted its trajectory toward them, sensor readings off the charts. Dalton said, voice tight, "It's reading every move we make." Ruiz leaned close to the screen. "It's predicting us. Every dodge, every throttle change. It's like it knows what we'll do before we do it." Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then we do something it can't predict." The human fleet, far behind them, watched as their small ships darted alone into the heart of the nebula. Many commanders shook their heads, muttering curses in dozens of languages. "Terrans are insane," one Vorowin admiral hissed. "They have no chance." Mara ignored it. "Probability doesn't matter when ingenuity is involved," she said, almost to herself. Dalton's fingers flew across her console. "If we can lure the thing through a series of ion pockets and gravitational anomalies, we might slow it down. Its mass makes it clumsy in tight spaces." Ortiz's voice crackled from engineering. "We can't just lead it blindly. If it adapts mid-maneuver, we're toast." Mara nodded. "Which is why we'll do it differently. Not blindly. We'll make it think we're running in one direction while we attack from another." They began the maneuver. The Valiant accelerated toward a narrow corridor of ionized gas, the creature following, immense and unstoppable. Mara twisted the Falcon's thrusters at the last second, slipping through a side channel. The monster surged forward, overshooting the narrow gap, momentarily, colliding with jagged gas formations. The impact sent tremors through its spines, sending glowing shards scattering in every direction. "Nice work," Dalton muttered, eyes glued to the screens. "It didn't expect that." Ruiz grinned. "Small ships, big brains." Mara allowed herself a brief smile. "Exactly. They mocked Earth for small ships. Let's see them mock us now." The humans took the offensive. Dalton identified vulnerable points, junctions, where the creature's massive body connected its limbs to the central neural hub. Using the Valiant's smaller size, they darted from point to point, deploying energy charges to disrupt the creature's internal network. Every pulse of the charges made the hub quiver. The drones, now separated from their master, flailed in confusion, colliding into each other and breaking apart. The monster let out a deep, resonating pulse, a warning, or perhaps frustration, shaking the Falcon violently. Ortiz shouted over the comm. "Hull integrity at 50%. Shields at 30. You can't keep this up." Mara's hands were steady. "Then we don't. We keep moving. We make every hit count." From afar, the Alliance fleet watched in awe as 12 small ships danced around the colossal creature, striking, dodging, and retreating. Even the most experienced alien commanders were speechless. "They're improvising," one car's warlord murmured. "And it's working." Mara focused on the hub, which glowed brighter with each disruption. "We push it too far, it'll destabilize completely. But if we time it right." She paused, calculating. "We have one shot to overload it. One clean strike." Dalton's voice was tense. "We're coming up on the right angle. Ready for your command." "On my mark," Mara said. 3, 2, 1, fire. A concentrated burst of energy launched from the Falcon, striking the central hub. The creature screamed in a wave of pulsing blue light that rippled across the nebula. The drones scattered, many disintegrating under the feedback. The hub convulsed violently, its black limbs thrashing, and then, silence. For a moment, nothing happened. The Falcon drifted in the stillness, shields humming. Then the hub's glow dimmed, the massive entity collapsing inward like a dying star, its spines curling toward the core. Dalton let out a sharp breath. We did it. Ruiz laughed, a mixture of relief and disbelief. I think we just broke the unbreakable. Mara's eyes were still on the dark shape of the nebula. Not just us, she said quietly. Human thinking. They couldn't predict that, couldn't see it coming. The Alliance fleet began to move forward, sending congratulatory signals, though many still hesitated in awe of the scale of what had just happened. Their massive dreadnoughts had done nothing. It was the small, nimble humans who had outsmarted the Predator. Voskel's silver eyes narrowed as he observed the reports. Earth. Underestimated, he muttered, a mixture of frustration and respect in his tone. Mara allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. Underestimate us all you want. Just don't forget it. The Falcon returned to the Valiant, battered but intact. The crew clambered aboard, exhausted but triumphant. Mara looked around at them, pride and relief mixing in her gaze. Ortiz leaned against the console, rubbing a hand over her face. I still can't believe that worked. We just outhawed a living nightmare. Dalton shook her head, smiling. Despite the fatigue, we didn't just survive. We won, against impossible odds. Ruiz grinned, and they mocked our small ships at the start. Mara's voice was steady, carrying the weight of everything they'd endured. Let them mock, let them doubt, because when it matters most, they'll see what humans are capable of. The nebula, once a place of terror, began to glow softly as the collapsing creature faded into harmless gas clouds. Light filtered through the crimson and gold, painting the Valiant and her crew in the calm after the storm. And in that light, Mara realized something. No matter how big the enemy, how dark the challenge, humans had one thing the galaxy underestimated: their courage, their ingenuity, and their relentless will to survive and outthink the impossible. The Kroth Nebula was quiet now, its swirling clouds calm in the aftermath of the explosion. Small fragments of the destroyed hub floated like glowing embers, and the drones were gone, leaving only drifting debris. For a moment, it seemed as if the universe itself was holding its breath. On the bridge of the F's Valiant, Captain Mara. Keegan allowed herself to exhale. Her crew sat silently, every one of them bruised, battered, but alive. Commander Alex Ruiz rubbed the back of his neck, still tense from the flight. Lieutenant Sarah Dalton's eyes lingered on the holographic display, analyzing the last signals from the destroyed hub. Chief Engineer Lena Ortiz finally spoke. I don't know whether to cry or scream. We actually did it. We beat it. Mara nodded slowly, and we did it together. Humanity, small ships, big brains. That's how we survive. Back in Alliance Command, the reactions were not as simple. Reports of the humans' daring and success reached every corner of the Galactic Council. Some species marveled at the human ingenuity, whispering among themselves about underestimated Earth tactics. Others were less impressed. Envy and fear coursed through their ranks. Vosko, the Vorun admiral who had once mocked the Earth fleet, paced his command room. They acted without permission. They ignored orders, and yet, they succeeded. Humanity cannot be controlled like the rest. A Car's Dominion counselor hissed, claws tapping sharply on the metal console. They flaunt their small ships. They interfere with strategy. If we allow this, every other minor species will try to do the same. Chaos will spread. Mara and her crew returned to the Valiant's docking bay to refuel and repair. The station's automated systems hummed around them, but the atmosphere felt tense. Messages from the Alliance Command were waiting. Congratulations. Official reprimands and veiled warnings, all layered over each other. Dalton read one aloud. Terran Command, your actions, while effective, bypassed fleet protocol. Immediate review of command decisions is required. You are instructed to defer to Alliance authority in all future engagements. Ruiz muttered. So, basically, they're mad we succeeded without permission. Ortiz snorted. Guess some things never change. Humans take risks, get results, and still get in trouble. Mara's gaze hardened. Let them be mad. They underestimated us once, and they will again if we let them control what we do next. Humanity doesn't follow orders blindly. We survive because we think, adapt, and act. But the unease wasn't just in the messages. Reports kept coming from smaller sectors, worlds where alien fleets had been waiting to see the humans fail. Some ships withdrew when the human tactics succeeded. Others began spreading misinformation, claiming the humans' victory was luck, or that it had only been possible because the hub was weaker than expected. Mara gathered her officers. They're trying to control the story, she said. The galaxy will try to rewrite our actions to suit their politics. Dalton shook her head. Some species will never admit a human could outthink them. They'll pretend it was coincidence or an accident. Ruiz added, which makes our next move critical. We can't just wait for them to acknowledge what we did. We have to prove it again and again? Ortiz frowned. And if they try to stop us next time, if politics tie our hands? Mara's eyes met each of them. Then we'll adapt, like we always do. Humanity doesn't wait for permission. We make things happen, because we have to survive. That's what sets us apart. In the following hours, as repairs finished, Mara received a secure transmission. She activated it. A cold voice came through Admiral Vascal. Captain Keegan, your actions were remarkable. But know this, any Firth. The F's Valiant cut through the glowing expanse of the Kroth Nebula, its hull battered but resolute. Captain Mara Keegan stood at the viewport, eyes tracing the dying tendrils of the colossal alien structure, now collapsing into harmless clouds of gas. The nebula itself seemed to sigh, calm returning after the chaos around her. The human crew moved with quiet determination. Commander Ruiz checked the Falcon's instruments again. Lieutenant Dalton monitored the energy readings from the collapsing hub, and Chief Engineer Ortiz wiped soot and sweat from her face, muttering technical prayers under her breath. Status report, Mara said, voice steady. Ruiz nodded. Hull holding. Shield stable. Drones gone. The network is destabilizing further. If the rest of the swarm's systems are linked like the hub, it's all coming down. Humanity just gave the galaxy a head start. Dalton's eyes were wide. With AEW, you're saying? Our little strike could prevent other systems from being controlled by similar hubs. Mara allowed herself a faint smile. Exactly. One small move, maximum impact. Small ships, clever brains, humans do things differently. That's our edge. But the Alliance fleet wasn't fully convinced. Messages arrived from command, demanding reports and threatening censure. Some species were openly angry, refusing to acknowledge the human victory. Others were silent, observing, perhaps calculating whether Earth should be considered a friend or a threat. Mara ignored them. Let them be angry. Let them doubt. We don't fight for recognition. We fight because it's necessary, Ortiz muttered. Necessary. Sure. But it doesn't make it any less stressful. Ruiz chuckled. You think stress is new to humans? Suddenly, the Valiant sensors picked up something unexpected. A series of signals pulsed through the nebula, radiating from the collapsing hub remnants. Dalton's console beeped wildly. It's residual energy, she said, frowning. But it's coherent, structured, almost like it's sending a message. Mara leaned over. A message? From the hub. Dalton nodded. Yes, and it looks like the chain reaction is spreading faster than we expected. Nearby systems are starting to stabilize. Planets that were in danger of being consumed by swarms. They're safe. Our strike didn't just destroy one threat. It triggered a cascade that neutralized many others. Without firing a single fleet-wide volley, humans have saved multiple systems. Ruiz whistled low, all because of a few small ships, daring tactics, and guts. Not bad for a species everyone laughed at. Mara's lips curved into a proud smile. They mocked us, underestimated us, and they still do. But humans always find a way. Across the nebula, alien observers reported the collapse. Even Voskel, the Vorowan admiral who had sneered at human strategy, now sat in stunned silence aboard his flagship. He finally muttered, "They didn't just survive. They outhawed the impossible. Earth has changed everything." Dalton's console beeped again. "Captain, multiple Alliance worlds are signaling gratitude. Some admit, reluctantly, that human tactics prevented disaster. Some are even requesting assistance directly from Earth fleets." Mara's eyes softened. It's more than gratitude. It's respect. Not the kind forced by authority, but respect earned. And that lasts longer than fear. The Valiant emerged from the nebula into open space. Stars sparkled against the dark canvas, and planets turned slowly in their orbits. The humans had survived, adapted, and an entity older and stronger than anything the galaxy had feared. Ortiz shook her head, half laughing. "I still can't believe we made it out alive." Ruiz clapped her on the shoulder. "You don't need to believe it. You lived it. That counts more than anything." Dalton gazed out at the stars. "Do you think the Alliance will finally take us seriously?" Mara's gaze stayed on the horizon, calm yet burning with determination. "They will. Because they saw what humans are capable of. Not because they wanted to, not because they respected protocol, but because we proved it. Every step, every risk, every small ship and clever maneuver. That's humanity." The Valiant turned toward the fleet rendezvous point, engines glowing warmly against the black void. The crew gathered on the bridge, sharing a quiet camaraderie. They didn't need applause or recognition. Their hearts were full, their spirits unbroken. "Captain," Dalton said softly, "we saved lives today. Not just our own, but countless others. All because we dared where others hesitated." Mara nodded. "Yes. And because we never let fear dictate our actions. We act, we adapt, we survive. That's what makes humans unstoppable." Ruiz smiled. "And don't forget stubborn." Ortiz laughed. "And loud. Always loud." Mara's smile widened, and for the first time in days, she allowed herself to feel the weight of their achievement. Against impossible odds, humans had not only survived but changed the course of the galaxy. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and Mara realized something profound. The galaxy would continue to doubt, to mock, to challenge humanity at every turn. But it didn't matter. Humans had proven a truth that no alien race could deny. Cleverness, courage, adaptability, and unity were stronger than sheer size or firepower. Dalton leaned back, her gaze steady. "So, what now?" Mara's voice was calm, confident, filled with the weight of victory. "Now we continue. Now we protect, we explore, we survive. And when the next impossible challenge comes, we'll meet it head." Humanity doesn't wait. Humanity acts, and humanity wins. Ruiz grinned. "Humanity, F yeah." Mara's eyes shone with determination. "Humanity, F, hell yeah." The F's Valiant surged forward, small but unyielding, through the vast expanse of space. Behind them, the nebula faded into starlight. Ahead lay the unknown, full of dangers, full of challenges, and full of possibilities. And the galaxy knew, without a shadow of doubt, that Earth had arrived, no longer underestimated, no longer ignored. Humanity, against all odds, had shown its strength, and the stars would never forget.